ॐ सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम्। My namaskars to all the administrators of this great hospital, the doctors and students of this great institution. Thank you for having me here. I'll be sharing a new perspective. Not that it is new for you, it may be a renewal, a new relook at a perspective which probably will make meaning in the kind of circumstances you find yourself as doctors in these modern days. Please see how much of it is useful for you. I deliberately gave the title, A Little Tickling, Doctor's Life in Patient's Hands. I thought doctors would be tickled by that. They said, what do you mean? So I said, let me see how it goes. I also would like to see how it goes from here. Let me begin with a fundamental question, which is very central to your profession. What is life? You talk as doctors, how do I save life? So I just ask this question, what is life? Would some student, I can't dare to ask the professors. I think there are some students here, medical students. Would anyone like to answer that question? What is life? Okay, in medical terms? Oh, you would have come to hear. Okay, I'll continue. What is life? Life is an interaction. Let's not be very profoundly philosophical. Let's be simply practical. What is life? Life is interaction. Interaction with fellow beings, interaction with things. If this stops functioning, it will irritate me. And if it starts making a static noise, it will irritate you. So a thing, an interaction with a thing, interaction between you and me, this is life. Fundamentally, very basic definition, we can say life is interaction with fellow human beings and with things. And of course, interaction with ourselves. I keep talking, throughout the day, we keep talking. I think the maximum we talk is with ourselves. Knowingly or unknowingly, we continuously keep talking to ourselves. That is called self-talk. What is the nature of the talk? That's a different matter. But we talk with ourselves. It's a voice, inner voice, which keeps talking, telling me something. So it is an interaction with myself, with people outside, with things. Now in the process of this interaction, which is in the form of stimuli and responses, we assume various identities. You will have to follow me closely. We function in this society with multiple identities. Multiple identities. Let's take one of you here. You're sitting here as a doctor. Not just as a doctor, you have a designation, an administrative post or a special qualification. That is an identity. He's a doctor, but he's an eye doctor. He's not just an eye doctor, he's a retina doctor. He's not retina something else. So his identity goes on multiplying. And then you're an administrator, then you're a colleague, and then you're a doctor to a patient. And then you just walk out, you say, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I am a son, I'm a brother, I am a friend, I am a citizen, I belong to a religion, I have a responsibility there. Multiple identities with which we function in life. And all these identities, they create demand on me. Every identity has a demand on me in terms of my time, my energy, my thinking, my feelings. It has a demand on me. It involves duties, expectations, desires, fears. Please understand this. Every identity has duties, expectations, fears, desires. Every identity, every relationship with that, born of that identity, I have these. As a brother, as a son, as a husband, as a wife, I have these desires, I have these expectations, I have these fears. All put together is my life. All of them together constitute my life. Now, how we handle these identities and What control we have over the interactions born of these identities, that will determine the quality of our life. What is the quality of your life? It depends on how you handle control, your interactions, and then how you handle your identities. So many identities we give in here in the hospital. The importance is given to your identity as a doctor. Your husband, you are a wife, you say that identity will be subdued now. For now, I am a doctor. So that identity becomes dominant. So multiple identities, multiple interactions, multiple demands, how do I handle it? That defines the quality of my life. Now these identities and these transactions will necessarily involve stress. There is nothing which happens without stress. There will be some amount of stress in this. There will be some pressure. Every relationship, every identity will bring some amount of pressure and stress. But if these identities become obsessive, distorted, unhealthy, then we lose control over life's interactions and we suffer from what is called distress, a weakening condition of life. You are familiar with that, eustress and distress. And when stress becomes distress, when these identities go out of my control, they grow so much that they swallow me. Even in dream, I am a doctor. Even while walking in the market, I am a doctor. Even when talking with my child, I am a doctor. That means somewhere this identity of a doctor has overlapped all the other identities. It has become distorted. So what will be my fundamental identity? I will arrive at that. Now it is known that a doctor's thoughts, a doctor's feelings, a doctor's state of tension in the mind, they somehow enter and influence his clinical judgments and actions. This is accepted truth. His thoughts, his feelings on that day, at that moment, it somehow impinges and influences his clinical judgment. I remember reading in a book, you probably are familiar with that, How Doctors Think. You have read that? How Doctors Think, by Dr. Jerome Groopman. I remember reading there. He says that there is a growing body of research which states that technical errors account for only a small fraction of incorrect diagnosis and treatment. A diagnosis was wrong, a treatment line was wrong. He says, technically, only very small percentage of such errors happen because of technical reasons. Most errors are mistakes in thinking. It is a fascinating book. Even as a layman, I found it very fascinating. Case after case, he shows how this error happened. Top doctors in New York and others, suddenly they make a mistake. Technically, he knows it cannot be, but a mistake has happened. Why? There is an error in thinking. Error in thinking has led to this wrong diagnosis, wrong treatment. And he says one of the causes for this cognitive error, it's a cognitive error. Technically highly qualified, he will not repeat that mistake again. At that moment, that mistake has happened. Why? It is a cognitive error. And why did this cognitive error happen? He points out negative feelings, negative self-image. A doctor's negative feelings and negative self-image will affect his thinking for that moment, which results in a wrong diagnosis, a wrong line of treatment. You please read that book. It is fascinating to see the case studies he gives, and it's also frightening because you hope you will not be the patient who will suffer like that. Now, negative feelings and negative self-image not only impacts my diagnosis as a doctor, my work as a doctor, it will also have a negative impact on my interactions with my administration, with my fellow doctors, with the hospital staff, with my patients, with the patient's relatives. Now, I'll ask you to give me a margin of patience. I request you personally, give me a margin of say, okay, let me hear what this man says. Because it may irritate you at a point and say, you don't know what doctors face. Yeah, I don't know what doctors face, but give me a margin. Just listen me out. See if there is some merit in that. And when this negative feeling of a doctor, negative feeling about himself, which will overflow into negative feeling about My hospital, my administration, my colleagues, my staff, my patients, their relatives. It is just a matter of flowing over. Once it is there inside, it will come out sometime. It will affect. It cannot but affect because it comes from me. And if I am filled with those negative thoughts, it has to grow out and affect all my other relationships. And when that happens, it will affect me fundamentally as a doctor, as a human being. Not just my diagnosis, that negative feeling, negative thought has affected me as a human being, as a doctor. Now, every interaction, we know it is an exchange of energy. Every interaction is an exchange of energy. When a doctor is talking with a patient, treating a patient, what is happening? There is an exchange of energy. If any psychologists are here, they will immediately see that line. It is an exchange of energy. In truth, this exchange of energy happens always, not just a doctor and a patient. Swami Vivekananda points it out in his talks. He says, every moment we are influencing each other. You are influencing him, he is influencing you. This is automatically happening every moment. We influence each other by the way we dress, our mannerisms, our talk, our knowledge, everything. In fact, whatever we do, very subtly, if you go inside and discover it, it is to influence. And in this world where we are influencing each other continuously, Swami Vivekananda says, only 1/3 of the influence is created by your dress, by your language, by your mannerisms. 2/3 of the influence is created by what you are inside. He calls it character force. What you are as a human being, that creates 2/3 of the influence. 1/3 of the influence, your language, your knowledge, your mannerisms, your dress, all that only 1/3 of the influence. He goes, extends this, and he says if someone comes and gives a very good talk, very erudite, scholarly talk, everyone appreciates it was very good. But in 2 days, they can't remember a point. Why? Because it was an influence of the personality outside. And he says someone else comes, ungrammatical, not connected, disjointed thoughts, but something comes out from the man. And that has an impact. Every moment we are influencing each other. Whoever has that personality, the personal magnetism it is called, either positive or negative, that personal magnetism goes out and touches and influences fellow human beings. We are doing this continuously. If a doctor, his inner personal magnetism has turned negative, for whatever reason, then that interaction with the patient, because a doctor, the very word doctor becomes meaningful only when there is a patient. Am I right? Without a patient, I cannot claim I am a doctor. I am a doctor only when there is a patient. If there are no patients in this world, then how will I call myself a doctor? I need a patient to find meaning in my identity as a doctor. And there will always be patients. So we don't have to be frightened whether we lose this identity. There will always be patients. Now, what constitutes the element of this influence? Our thoughts, our feelings, the attitudes which are born of these thoughts and feelings, and the actions which originate with these attitudes. Thoughts, feelings, attitudes, actions. This is how the influence goes out. A doctor, knowingly or unknowingly, is doing this continuously with his patients. He's not just exchanging his knowledge to cure the patient. He's doing something more. That's the point. Now, this raises an important question. How is my work as a doctor impacting me? Any deep thinking person would like to ask this question. I am doing this job because we are all here doctors. Let's ask this question. How is my work as a doctor influencing, impacting me as a human being? Is it having an impact? And then what kind of impact is that? Now the answer to this question will depend on how or from what level I am functioning. What do I mean? We function from two levels. We function from two levels. First is called the being level. Being means I am. I am, not identity. It is not extended to the identity. First is the being level, second is the function level. Function level is where identities come. Function level is identity. The moment you go home, you are a mother, you are a wife, you are a father, you are a husband, your functional identities take over there and your thoughts, feelings, actions will flow. That is the functional level, which is dependent on identities. Am I making sense? So the functional level depends on identities, and we have seen multiple identities in our lives, each one of us. But whatever may be our identities, we all have a fundamental level in which our identity is same. I am a human being. I am a human being. Whatever may be the body, male, female, however intelligent, however powerful or ignorant, it is fundamentally I am a human being. Now that being, I am a human being, in that dimension, again if I go inside, our rishis did that. They found I am not just a human being. What do you mean by human being? They went inside and they discovered layers to this human personality. In one of the 10 major Upanishads called Taittiriya Upanishad, we find this discussion. Who is a human being? The rishis, they were scientists. Rishis were scientists. Drashtara, they could see. Drashtara is one who sees deeper than others. And they saw this. What did they see? They said, human personality has 5 dimensions. First is the physical dimension. Annamaya, Atma, they call it. Next is the energy dimension. They said behind this body there is energy, animating this energy. And they call this Pranamaya Atma. They said behind this energy there is something else. They called it mind, Manomaya Atma. They said yes, behind the mind, very subtle functioning behind the mind. It requires tremendous amount of self-introspection to discover these layers of personality. They said behind the mind there is something else, and they called it Vijnanamaya Atma. The dimension from where my I consciousness functions, from where intuition flows. And again behind that they said, in the deepest meditation we discover there is another dimension to our personality. They said it is so subtle, it can't even be expressed, it can only be experienced, and that experience is bliss. Anandamaya Atma. The physical dimension, energy dimension, mental dimension, intellectual dimension, and then the blissful dimension. They said these are the 5 layers of human personality, and at the core, what they said, they discovered, they said it is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, the word they used was Atma. Now, when I am treating a human being, and I function as a human being, should I not know this? From what level am I functioning? When I function at the outside level with identities, multiple identities, I am way outside myself. It is an identity given to me by society. If I am all alone in this world, what will be my identity? All my identities are born because I have people around me. I have things around me. If I put on Mars, what will be my identity? There is nothing. I am a human being, that's all. I don't have anything, anyone. So when I function from the outside level, it is called a functional level. When I go deeper into myself, it is called a being level. So how is my work as a doctor affecting me? The answer will be, from what level are you functioning? Are you functioning from the being level? Are you functioning from the outside functional level? How to understand this? Let's see this. Now the challenge is to integrate this being and function. Not that this is important, that's not important. I have to integrate. My being should flow into my function. And what do I mean by being? Let me make it clear again. What I am, what I stand for. Who I am and what I stand for, that in one sense defines what I mean by being level. I am a human being, yes. What kind of a human being? Let me give an example. There is a malaria in a town, and one doctor, very efficient doctor, is happy with more patients. Don't mind me. A doctor is happy when patients come because he will cure them. And he gives special thanks to God. Both because his business is good and he's also able to cure them. So he's very happy. There is malaria, more patients coming, I have more income and I'm able to treat them efficiently. I'm very happy with that. Now, there is another doctor in the town. He's also getting patients. Then he starts thinking, why are so many people suffering? Why are so many people coming to me with malaria? So he advises patients the precautions to be taken at home. You see, these are the precautions you should take at home. Do this, do that, all those things. He doesn't stop at that. Patients are still coming. So he now goes to the corporation. He knows some officers in the corporation. He tells them, wake up. They usually are sleeping. So he wakes them up. Wake up, there is a malaria going in the town. Wake up, go on and clean those things. All the stagnant waters, you remove that. Do fumigation, clean all these things. The corporation wakes up and the patients reduce. He doesn't stop at that. Next step, what does he do? He initiates self-help groups in all localities in the town to prevent any more malaria cases in future. Now, the first doctor is efficient. Second doctor is also efficient. Both are good in their identity as doctor. From the functional mode, they both are very efficient. But the second doctor brings something more into his work. He is bringing his being into that work. Suppose that patient is my own father, is my own son. Will I be happy? I will curse the corporation. Useless fellows, because of my father got corona, as is malaria. But the other patient is not related to me. I am a good doctor, I will treat you, come. Why? Because I'm functioning from that outside level, functioning level, where I am a doctor, I am here to cure you, and I need you patients, keep coming. Second doctor is also efficient. He cures them, but he functions from inside, deeper level. They are my fellow human beings. This is someone's father, this is someone's brother, this is someone's daughter. Why should their parents suffer? Why should the husband suffer? Wife suffer? Children suffer? This should not happen to my fellow human beings. Why should it happen? I will take precautions to make sure this doesn't happen again in my town. What would you call the second doctor? Impractical? Maybe someone will say impractical fellow. He'll lose his business. But he's functioning from a deeper level. Practicality will say he is not very wise, you see. His income will go down, patients will not be there. And what will he do? Now, this brings us to another question. The first doctor is functional engagement, second doctor is human engagement. Where it involves recognition and practice of certain ideals, which is in fact what is called spiritual living. Competence plus contribution. He is doing both. A doctor who is the first doctor is also competent, he is also contributing. Let us not say he is only taking money, that will be very negative. He is contributing, right? He is saving patients, he is contributing. But this contribution, such doctors who function only at the functional level, they are on and off. Their contribution is on and off. When situations and circumstances are favorable, they are in a contributive mode. When the situations become, or circumstances become negative, or the feedback loop becomes negative, either from your superior or the patient or something, they withdraw. I refuse to cooperate. I refuse to contribute. This will come when they function from the outside level, because that functioning from outside level depends on outside circumstances. It is not springing from inside me. Only when it springs from inside me, whatever may be the circumstances outside, whatever may be the feedback loop, it will not change who I am, what I stand for. Who I am and what I stand for is at the core of my being, my belief system, my value system. That does not change whatever may be the response from you. I was very thrilled to see in the director's room, there is a plaque where he says, great public schemes, and you will have to face these most shocking insults, presumptuous judgments of the ignorant. Yeah, you may be presumptuous, I know you are ignorant and your judgments are presumptuous, and your most shocking kind of insults you are doing. That will not change who I am. When I function from the being level, it does not change who I am. But when I function from the outside level, I am a doctor, you are a patient. The moment that interaction becomes negative, the feedback is negative, my contribution, my work, everything is affected. And that affects me as a human being. Suppose we have these instances of patients, relatives manhandling doctors. So immediately it is a negative feedback loop. So I refuse to have all the concern for you. Whatever the Hippocratic oath I took, forget it. You people don't deserve my goodness. I will not give you. It has changed me as a human being. Without knowing, I am affected. It can be like there is too much demand on my time, administration is unresponsive, my colleagues are not appreciative, patients are ungrateful. One after another, once you start taking a negative thought, whatever may be the reason, outside response is negative, one negative thought will lead to another negative thought. We will be creating cages for ourselves. We self-imprison ourselves. We become victims. And a victim mindset can never contribute. A victim mindset always has excuses for not contributing. And when I don't contribute, like the second doctor, I function only as the first doctor. And my benefit is just money. And that is a huge loss in life. And these negative thoughts are very disempowering. It's like our coronavirus, very disempowering. Silently it comes in, and before the man realizes, he has gone into a negative loop. I don't believe in my contribution makes any use to this hospital. I don't think it matters how I see the patient. It will go a long negative loop. And this will lead to disengagement from being level. He will function from the outside level. And the consequence is very big. Why? What do I mean? There are three reasons why we work. There are three reasons why you are working as doctors. The first reason is, when I take up a job, when I take up any job, let's talk only about a doctor's life. When I take up the profession of a doctor, what happens? I take responsibility. A job brings responsibility. There are people who work without taking responsibility. They are not here because it's a great institution, and let's not assume they are here. When I take a job, I take responsibility. And what happens when I take responsibility? It awakens my inner potential, my inner talents. This, you have any psychologists here will be familiar with that Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. Roti, carpet, makan is fundamental human need. More than that, there are other higher human needs. It is not enough you give me maximum amount of salary and very good food and clothes. That will not fulfill all my human needs. Roti, carpet, makan is basic animal level human need. I have higher needs. What is that? A sense of belonging. I need love. I need affection. That is also a human need. As a human being, I need it. And then there is a higher level than that. What is it? He calls it self-actualization. Self-actualization is an opportunity to manifest my potential. All my potentials, my talents as a human being, can I manifest it? You are a doctor, suppose you are not even giving any chance to see a patient. No, you are a surgeon, we won't give you a chance to do any operation, but we'll give you a salary. Will the doctor be happy? He will say, impossible, I cannot work here. Because I need that opportunity to manifest my potential, my skills. To hone on my skills, to grow, I need an opportunity. Self-actualization is the reason why I work. When I take responsibility, my inner potentials and talents will start manifesting. That gives me a deeper sense of fulfillment than any amount of money can give, any amount of recognition and power can give. Because that can come and go. I made you director, tomorrow I remove you as director. What happened? What came went away. But when I work and I manifest my potentials, nobody can take it out. It is mine and it is inside. And it gives a deep sense of satisfaction and joy, which you experience in your doctor's life. That is the first reason why we should work. Swami Vivekananda, when he was asked this question, what is life? He traveled across India as a parivrajak for more than 3 years. He met one king, Raja Ajit Singh, Raja of a small kingdom called Khetri. And this great king asked him two fundamental questions. What is life? What is education? First question, what is life? He asked. Back came Swami Vivekananda's reply. Life is the unfoldment and development, two words, please note. Life is the unfoldment and development of a being. Being is Vyakti, Jivi. Life is the unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances tending to press it down. Circumstances tending to press it down. In those circumstances, life manifests. Life is the unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances tending to press it down. When I work, when I take responsibility, circumstances will press me down. And when circumstances press me down, my inner potentials manifest. That is when life manifests. If there is someone, he has no pressure, no tension, his mother gives him all money, he is not alive. He is an animal. Swamiji has another definition for a human being. Who is a human being? Swamiji's definition is this. Man is a compound of animality, humanity, divinity. Man is a compound of animality, humanity, divinity. Pashutva, Manushatva, Daivatva. ಈ ಮೂರರ ಸಮ್ಮಿಶ್ರಣ ಮನುಷ್ಯ. Highly educated, very competent, inside he may be an animal. That's because he has high knowledge doesn't mean he is something high. He may be a perfect animal inside. His life is at the level of senses. An animal level is a level of senses. Intense competition. One who lives at the animal level, continuously competitive, competing with fellow human beings, like dogs barking to eat that share of meat, continuously competing. That is the animal level. Next level is the Manushatva, humanity level. That comes when the man says, I share with you. Let us grow together. First one is total selfishness. Animal level is perfect selfishness. Next level, at the human level, Manushatva level, it is an awakening of higher thoughts. Sri Ramakrishna would say, he is a Manush whose mind has awakened. Awakened to what? Awakened to higher thoughts. What is the higher thought? At the animal level, it is perfect selfishness. I, and I. When the individual rises a little higher, he says, I and you. I and you. He includes I and my patient. It is not just about my happiness, I and my patient's happiness. It is not about my success, I and my patient's success. In every relationship, it becomes I and you and I. It will evolve next into you and I. And finally, if that person is good in values, in understanding and assimilating these ideals, he rises to the next level, Daivatva, where he says, only you. The I is forgotten. In a normal human being's life, it is the mother who manifests this the best. That is why she is called Matrudevo Bhava. Let your mother be like a god unto you, because automatically she becomes perfectly unselfish, though it is only with one relationship, with her child. That perfect unselfishness, one example God has created is the mother. So the scriptures tell us, let your mother be like a god unto you. Then Pitru Devo Bhava, then Acharya Devo Bhava. That is the divinity awakening inside. That is why Swami Vivekananda gave us a wonderful definition of God. What is God? We will immediately start fighting. My religion has told this. No, my dharma has told this. Swamiji has a very, very, very strange definition of God. Unselfishness is God, he says. Unselfishness is God. The moment I become unselfish, that selfishness, I and mine, when I grow over it, the inner divinity starts manifesting. So that is the first reason why I need to work. Work gives me responsibility. Responsibility is circumstances trying to press me down. Under those circumstances, I manifest life, my inner potentials and talents. Second reason why I should work as a doctor is this. We have the concept of Yajna Chakra. We are continuously taking from society, we have to give back. You will know as doctors, if someone eats and he doesn't clear his bowels, you say he is constipated. This constipation is not just at physical level. It can happen at the emotional level, at the spiritual level also. There are some people who are energy suckers. They go on taking. They don't want to give anything. You will have some friends like that. You will see relatives and friends. When they come only with one word. What can you give me? These are people who are always in the taking mode. They suffer. Give anything more, they will never be satisfied because they have not learned to give. And until you learn to give, your life has stagnated. It's a continuous give and take. I'll share with you my favorite quote of Einstein, which I share with students. There are some students here, maybe it will help you. Albert Einstein. He says, 100 times a day, I remind myself that my inner and outer life depends upon the labors of other men living and dead. 100 times I remind myself that my inner and outer life depends upon the labors of other men living and dead. Who built this? I don't know. Maybe he's dead. But I am enjoying that. My life is depending on that. Inner life, what my teachers taught me, what my parents taught me. With that I am making sense of this exchange of ideas through sounds that I am uttering. First part. Second part, and that I must exert myself in order to give back in the same measure as I have received and I am still receiving. I have to exert to give back in the same measure as I have received and I am still receiving. That is the second reason why I have to work. I have taken so much from this society right from my childhood. It is a time for me now to give back, and I will give back in the profession I have trained myself to be, a doctor. As a doctor, I will give back. So where comes the question of the feedback from the patient? Patient is not good, patient's relatives are not good, so my contribution will not be given. I suffer. Patient suffers, forget it. I suffer fundamentally when I stop giving back. And how do I give back? What is the attitude? How do I give back? Swamiji gives us an attitude. This is born, he gives this phrase, Shiva Gnane Jiva Seva. Shiva Gnane Jiva Seva. Serve fellow human beings, looking upon them as the Lord Himself. This is the root of Sanatana Dharma. The discovery of this land, that the whole universe is one consciousness, which theoretical physics is now talking. Cutting edge research in physics is in two fields. What is consciousness? What is energy? This is what our rishis did. And they discovered, thousands of years ago, they made three fundamental discoveries. Man is energy. This universe outside is also energy. They called it Prana Shakti. And they said, this Prana Shakti in me and outside in the nature are same. This is life. This Prana Shakti is both in living and non-living. Second discovery, they said this Prana Shakti has come from something which cannot be defined. They called it consciousness. The word they used was Atman. Atman is consciousness. They said this energy has come from this, which is consciousness, which cannot be identified and defined. Third discovery, they said this whole universe has as its source an infinite consciousness. They called it Brahman. Now that is the discovery of our Vedic rishis, and on that Swami Vivekananda gives us, this whole universe is nothing but one consciousness. Fellow human beings and I are interconnected like cells in my body. The cells in my hair and the cells in my feet, they are interconnected. They are come from one cell. One cell has multiplied and become this body. Similarly, the whole universe is interconnected. This interconnection is divine. When a doctor approaches a patient, at least from his being level, I am a human being, here is a being suffering. If he can go deeper and he says, I and he are one. Jesus says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Why? Because fundamentally he and I are one at the level of consciousness. When he approaches him like that, a sacred space is created. That relationship assumes a sacred dimension. You may not want to call it spiritual, but it is something sacred. Why call it even sacred? Because something, the best inside you manifests. The best in you manifests when that interaction is divinized. That is the ideal Swami Vivekananda gave us. Serve fellow human beings. And he coined a phrase, for this. He called Rogi Narayana. Rogi Narayana. He says Rogi is Narayana. Now this goes into deeper levels of philosophy, let's not go into it, but the essence, the summary of that is this. I and my fellow beings are connected. I am connected with my patient. How I interact with him what kind of energy I transmit to him in my diagnosis. You have seen that negative thoughts can affect my diagnosis. How I connect with him, he is going to change me as a human being. You see, work has influence and impact on two dimensions. You'll have to follow me closely. Every work that you do, it has an impact on the world outside. You created one garden, or you had an operation, or you consulted someone, you treated someone, it has impacted the world outside. Simultaneously, it has impacted on what you are as a human being. Your level of awareness, Parashutva, Manushatva, Daivatva, that level of awareness from which you function, that is influenced and impacted with the kind of work you do. Not just the work, the attitude you bring into the work, the feelings you bring into the work, that is changing you as a human being. People don't understand this. 2 years ago, a doctor came to meet me, Kannada doctor. I have met him just a few times, and he told me, I want to talk with you in Chennai. I said, yes. What is it? He says, Swamiji, 4 ದಿನದಿಂದ ನಿದ್ದೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. Every night I am taking a sleeping tablet. I said, very strange for a doctor to tell me this. ಏನಾಯ್ತು? Then he said, exam ಇದೆ Swamiji. DM exam. Oh, I said, DM exam and you have a tension for that? He said, yes. Almost 4 days, one full sleeping tablet ತಗೊಂಡು ನಿದ್ದೆ ಬರೋದು ಕಷ್ಟ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ತುಂಬಾ ಟೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೈಂಡ್ ರಿಲ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಹೇಳಿ. What do I tell this doctor? 5 years MBBS and MD is how many years? 3 years, and then DM? 3 years. I said, look at that. So I wanted to just poke him. Sometimes poking helps. I said, MBBS copy ಮಾಡಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ. ತೆರೆಗೆ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ. MD ಸೀಟ್ ಸಿಗೋದು ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ. ಹೆಂಗೆ ಸೀಟ್ ಸಿಕ್ತು? ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟ. ಕಾಪಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ. So you are a good student. You did your MBBS. You did your MD. DM ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಿ ಮೆಡ್ರಾಸಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದು ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ ಹಾಗೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನಾನು. ಸೊ ನೀವು 5 ವರ್ಷ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದಿ MBBS ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, 3 ವರ್ಷ ತುಂಬ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟು MD ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, 3 ವರ್ಷ ಕಷ್ಟಪಟ್ಟು DM ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, ಕೊನೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆ ಬರೀಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ತಾನೆ. ಫೇಲ್ ಆದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಮತ್ತೆ ಚಾನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ, ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ಲ. Then I told him, he is come back to Karnataka to practice. So I told him, people will not come to you looking at your balangochi behind your name. ಹೆಸರು ಹಿಂದೆಗಡೆ ಒಂದು ಬಾಲಂಗೋಚಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇಷ್ಟು 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 ಇಷ್ಟು, ಅದು 2 ಲೈನ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ನೋಡಿ ಯಾರು ಬರಲ್ಲ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬರೋದು ಕೈಗುಣ ನೋಡಿ. ಕೈಗುಣ ಏನಿದೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾನಂದೆ 3 ವರ್ಷ ನೀವು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀರ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ? ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸ್ವಾಮೀಜಿ. ಹೋಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ. 3 ವರ್ಷ ಕಲ್ತಿರೋ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ತಗೋತಾರ? ಎಕ್ಸಾಮಿನರ್ ವಾಪಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾನೆ ಆ ವಿದ್ಯೆ ಎಲ್ಲ. The examiner will only say, I will not give you a certificate, but you already have the knowledge of a DM doctor. Go and practice. And he cleared his exams. He cleared his exams. After all that hard work, there is a lack of self-confidence. This you can overcome if your only motive is, how do I serve? How do I contribute? That's the second reason why I have to work. I have to work because I have to contribute. You will overcome all fears when your only concern is, how do I contribute? How do I contribute? Doctor's life is most challenging because in your hands is the life of the patients. I gave that title, but the truth is, patient's life is in your hands. It is in your hands. I may make a mistake in my talk, I may make a mistake in something else, not life-threatening. One mistake from you, it can be life-threatening. And it is a not easy thing for a sensitive mind. I have a student who is in MV Prasad, that eye hospital. He was in Shankar Nethralaya, my student. He would come. Once he came totally dejected. I said, what happened? I botched up an operation. I cannot sleep, I'm feeling miserable. 2 days it went. Then his professors told him, forget it or you will not do anything more. Forget it. Go ahead, forget it, go ahead. Nobody comes perfect. Some people pay for it. But when you become a specialist, don't forget all these failures. Don't increase your fee saying, I am a specialist. You are a specialist at the expense of so many of my fellow human beings. Now he is working, he is stabilized, he is a retina specialist. What I am telling, if I have this thought, I am working to contribute, I will be able to work from the deeper levels of my personality, and that work will give me payment. Money will come. That is the third purpose of work. I need money for livelihood. It will come when you are good. If you make money as first criteria, money, what is the pay package? You will lose the remaining 2 things. And without those two things, life will be at an animal level. Well dressed, beautiful house, wonderful car, but still an animal. If you want to climb higher, these are the first two things. I am working so that I can manifest my potentials. Why can't I be one of the best doctors who cures, who feels, who can touch the lives of people, transform them? A doctor has that responsibility. And it is my responsibility to contribute, and I am contributing through this noble profession of saving lives. As that mother whose child is saved, mother's child is saved, you will know, doctor is God. Why he is God? He saves lives. But a doctor's life to be saved, I have saved so many lives. Who will save my life? Who will save my life? I only have to save my life. Because it's not just being alive organically as an animal. I have to live at a higher level, at the level of Manushatva and Daivatva. For that, my work has to be transformed. I should function from the being level. Being level is, I have some values, this is what I stand for, the second doctor. I am as competent as you, but I want my fellow countrymen to be healthy. I function for that. When I do that, my life is in a sense in the patient's hand. Because that patient is my God, Rogi Narayana. When I worship him, when I serve him with that worshipful attitude, then my life manifests. If I don't, my life I lose. Lose that meaning in the deeper sense of life. I have shared some thoughts with you. I will be happy if you have any questions. Thank you. Any questions?
Sir?
Yes, sir.
In all your good thoughts that you have given us, where does karma fall in this?
What do you mean karma?
Karma, like I've been very thankful some of the times, when you are introspecting or when we are doing some service to mankind, there's sometimes you want to give something more. But there are some people who take it and then at the end of it, they say it's all my karma that I am suffering, it's a karma that I am gaining. So where does that come in?
Yeah. What happens to the other person is not my main concern. What happens to me as a human being? With this interaction with this world and the multiple identities I am functioning, what happens to me is the main concern for me. When I give with that noble attitude of serving, it becomes pure. Karma is mathematically precise. Karma is mathematically precise. And it works. There is a law of karma just like law of gravitation. You see, you need some science to understand law of gravitation. Similarly, you need some effort to understand the law of karma. You will have to go deeper into your mind. It is not reading books. When the mind becomes subtle and pure, you understand how things work. This universe is interconnected, it is an intelligent consciousness. The president of the American physicists, he says, I believe we are in a coded game. Some higher intelligence is playing a game and we are all codings in it. He's the president of the American theoretical physicists. He says this. He says, it's impossible to understand how this universe has been created. It is so perfect. A little imbalance here and there, life would not be here on this earth. How can that be an accident, he says. So there is a law working, and our rishis call it the law of karma. What is karma? Karma is action. What is action? Action is energy. Energy going out from me. When I become the instrument for sending out energy, what kind of energy I send out, that matters to me. And that purifies my heart. And when the heart becomes pure, I discover the inner intuition, the inner divinity. That's all it should be my concern. Now, how the other person takes, that's what I said. The patient is ungrateful, administration is unresponsive, colleagues are jealous. That doesn't confirm me. That should not disturb me. Yes, it is there, circumstances trying to press me down. But my main motive will be, I function with these values, ideals I have accepted. What are these values and ideals? I and my neighbor are one. Love thy neighbor as thyself. When Jesus was asked, what is the commandment? Tell me. The Jews wanted to trap him. Jesus gives two statements, which is the fundamental essence of Vedanta. What Jesus talks is only Vedanta, only it is misinterpreted. Jesus says, love thy God, thy Lord with all thy mind and all thy soul. First command. Second, love thy neighbor as thyself. And on these two commands hang every other command and prophet. Love that intelligence which has created you. What do you mean love? You try to discover, you build a relationship with it. Build that relationship, that is the inner divinity. Man is a compound of animality, humanity, divinity. The divinity is inside me, not lying somewhere else. I have to discover it. And how do I discover it? One powerful way is action, karma. And when that karma is unselfish, unselfishness is God, Swamiji's definition. The more it becomes unselfish, from I to I and you and I, and finally only you, I have reached that state where my inner divinity is manifesting. The best in a human being is manifested. He is called Daiva Purusha, Mahapurusha, because he manifests the divinity. He is a Mahatma Gandhi. He is a Vivekananda. He manifests the inner divinity. So the motive should be just that, how I manifest my energy. One of our senior Swami Ranganathananji, he gives this idea. It is the refinery. Refinery, crude oil is put into it. What comes out? All fine things. Vaseline is something which I apply on my lips. It comes from crude oil. He says each one of us should become a refinery. If society, I have multiple identities and I have multiple interactions. In those identities and through those interactions, if I get negative energy, I as an enlightened citizen, I will function as a refinery. Mutthala, mukha nodu, andre, mutthala din mukha nodu. What did he give back? Negative given with negative. It will become a lunatic asylum. So-called educated people also resort to this. You give me misunderstanding. That's why I liked it so much. The presumptuous judgments of the ignorant. You accept it, you digest it, you give back understanding and forgiveness. Why? That is how you become an enlightened citizen. That negative energy which came to me, it will stop here. It will be refined. It will go out as love and understanding and forgiveness. That is a great soul. Patients, they didn't understand me, they're ungrateful. Okay, don't harp on it. The more you start harping on it, you are entering into creating a cage for yourself, a negative cage. You are imprisoning yourself. Your identity is getting imprisoned. I am a doctor who is not appreciated. All the contributive mindset is lost. One who is imprisoned for whatever reason by his own mind, he cannot be saved, he cannot contribute, he cannot manifest the inner potentials. He will be working, only thing he gets is money. He will build bungalows, he will buy cars, but inside will be hollowness. There are two dimensions to life. I have to be successful outside, successful inside. I have to be rich outside, I have to be rich inside. How do I become rich inside? By my own efforts, my attitudes, and through my work. And that work will be one which will refine all the negative energy which comes to me. It is a tapasya. It is spiritual life. Spirituality is not simply going to temples and chanting. Spirituality is divinizing every relationship. And every interaction becomes uplifted to a higher level because I am an agent in that. Anyone interacting with me is uplifted. You give me something negative, I give back positive. That is greatness. You give negative, I give negative. That is that. That's a transactional animal level. So karma can change people. And it can change when I have this understanding. When I function from the deeper level of my being. Not just my functioning as a doctor, waiting for a patient, more money, more hospitals, more this. That will come when these two are taken care. When I take care that I have to contribute. When I take care that I am doing this to manifest my potential. The third thing has to come automatically. This is what I have to keep in mind. When I do that, the patient becomes my God. And my unfolding is in his hand. When I see him as a God, I unfold my divinity. Because as a doctor, my primary identity as a doctor is only with the patient. Not with the administrator, not with fellow doctors. It is with the patient. And if that patient becomes my God, how do I evolve? I evolve my divinity. So that's the idea I had. Doctor's life in patient's hand. Yes, Dr.
Of late, we are facing a very strange situation, most of our doctors. All our actions are being questioned. All our actions are being seen with suspicion. During these situations, how do you expect a doctor to function in a normal way?
Yeah, it's a very big challenge. I heard one of the doctor was telling me how even the doctor's profession is brought into this Consumer Act and all those things. And they're codifying this as a business. Now, if you mercilessly ask this, where does this marketing of medical profession begin? Does it begin with the doctor? Does it begin with a patient, a doctor, a medical college, which takes 3 crores for a seat? If he takes 3 crores for a seat, a patient, a doctor, a student pays 3 crores, he says, I have to make 6 crores. God doesn't put 6 crores into his pocket. He has to squeeze the patients. Somewhere it becomes dehumanized. You are a patient, a source of money for me. So that my relationship with the patient is dehumanized. Why did I do that? Because he who gave me a seat dehumanized that relationship. Knowledge was supposed to be given free in this land. Now it is offered for sale. You go into the nitty-gritties, someone's selfishness set this into it. Someone's selfishness. So what do? It is like the Aesop's fable. I throw you this many pieces, keep quiet, continue to do my work. I take 3 crores, you take 2 lakhs, keep quiet. We become a part of that cycle. It's a negative cycle. It dehumanizes everything, even the profession. So you cannot wholly blame the society. The system itself has created that. But in that system, still the challenge is, I have to be alive. Will I be alive only with money, or will I manifest my inner potential? Will I sleep without sleeping tablets? Will I have the peace? Will I have that joy? There is pleasure which comes from the senses. There is joy which comes from intellectual understanding. And at the deeper level, at the divine level, it is not coming from outside, it is discovering the bliss within. It is discovering the bliss within. It is called Ananda. Can I do that? It depends on me. Whatever may be the negative circumstances outside, negative low, finally it is I and my life. I have to take responsibility for it. And it's very challenging. There is no second question. A doctor's life is very challenging. Still, it's my life. How do I take charge of it? How do I take charge of these interactions and my identities? For that, I have to practice a little meditation maybe, a little reflection on realities, continuous orientation towards reality. In the process of our everyday life, we become superficial. Continuously, if I can reorient myself and see reality for what it is, we use so many phrases, our life in society, it is too superficial. Like, he kicked the bucket. When I first liked it, why did he kick the bucket? Then I understood that fellow died. Instead of telling he died, I say he kicked the bucket. I don't know how the phrase came. He is answering nature's call. You go to so many lengths to avoid seeing reality and stating reality as it is. Once in a while, if we turn inside, and the greatest task is to see the reality, what I am. What am I becoming? How am I functioning? As a Pashu, as a Manusha, or as a Daivatva. It requires tremendous courage to see inside. So all said and done, it is so challenging, so difficult, situations are not normal, but still it is my life, I have to take responsibility. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you, if you allow me, say 30, 40, did we have instances like patients beating up doctors? What changed in between? What changed? Dr. Devru. Devru ne hodeyom yaka. What changed in between? It is what medical fraternity will have to think. And when business people enter into medicine, in the field of medicine, we lose control. Because businessman has only one motive. How do you fill my pocket? Whatever maybe his nice names and other things, he is finally for filling his pocket. A doctor becomes dehumanized because someone is selfish. The system has become like that. Now who will change it? Who will bail the cat? That is the question, right? Doctors only have to do that. Only doctors can do that. There cannot be a society without a doctor. And if the doctor is not happy, society cannot be healthy. And if the doctor is functioning at the animal level, society will pay a heavy fine. And the doctor will also pay for it. Doctor doesn't, you should not imagine I will not pay for it. I have my house in my 25th floor. It will crumble. If you don't pay, your children will pay, your grandchildren will pay. Because these are the citizens who will be their neighbors. They will pay for it. So as citizens, enlightened citizens, we have to move from selfishness to enlightened selfishness, where I say the good of both of us. Dr. Swami can do that.
Swamiji, continuing to this question, Rajesh, Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, then Acharya Devo Bhava, Daritro Devo Bhava. Now comes when the challenge of anonymous, this type of attacks are there. Should we coin something like Shatru Devo Bhava, Dushta Devo Bhava? Something it comes to like that, the life interaction, whether they have been highly distorted or what.
Yes. You're right. Because some of these attacks, they're spontaneous, ignorant people, they don't understand. Maybe we can also see, maybe my communication level, if I can improve that communication level with him. All said and done, when someone is at very animal level, he knows only to bark and bite. I cannot prevent it. Swami Vivekananda says, I want immense idealism with immense practicality. This combination he wants. Immense idealism with immense practicality. Idealism is, yes, Rogi Narayana. But practical, when he is functioning as an animal, I say, call the police, take him out. I have to take recourse to the law, because there is a law here in the society which is still functioning, which has to take care of these people who function at animal level. Immense idealism, immense practicality. I have to keep both in mind. It is a challenge. And in this tension, there is a dynamic tension between idealism and practicality. Life manifests. These are challenges trying to press me down. These are new challenges. As senior doctors, as working doctors, you have to discover a solution for this. And as I asked you, where does this begin? This commodifying, making this a business. A doctor, a fellow human being, treating a fellow human being. How does it become a business? And why does it become such a cutthroat business? And you doctors, you know more things inside. Why does it become like that? Why is it, my father, oh, great care. Another fellow human being, I don't know. We have a hospital, 500 odd bed hospital in Calcutta. One of our presidents, when he was chair secretary of the hospital, he would repeatedly every day tell the doctors, look after the patients, see them as your own relatives. Now as Junior Swami was there, he would think, why every day Maharaj has to tell these doctors, treat the patients as your own relatives, treat the patients as your own relatives. Every day he would tell. He would go on rounds and all. Later this Swami became our general secretary and he was one of our vice presidents. One day, there was a patient admitted and he stayed for nearly 20 days. And when he was discharged, he came to thank this Swami. And at that moment, the senior doctor who had treated him was sitting there. And in the course of the conversation, the patient told, I am from this place, this. Doctor said, which house? Oh, that house. Why didn't you tell me you are my distant relative cousin? I said, yeah, I knew, but I didn't. Then doctor said, we are cousins and you didn't tell me. You should have told me beforehand. Then the Swami asked, what would you have done if I had told you beforehand? Have you taken more care? Then the Swami said, Sarvanash. Then he says, I understood why the senior Swami would repeatedly tell, look upon every patient as your relative. Have you taken more care? Don't you see he is someone else's father? Can't you understand? This is someone's only son. Only your son is your son. Every human being has a relationship. And there will be people suffering when that human being goes out. One doctor told me, you don't understand, we are told to dehumanize, all these emotions should be left out. Okay, leave out emotions, but still can't you get this feeling that this is a fellow human being, first and foremost, fellow human being. Someone's father, someone's mother, someone's son, someone's daughter. I'm going to treat that. How do you say, if I knew you were my cousin, distant cousin, I would have taken more care? That is coming from the functioning type. Whether it is my relative or an unknown person, Shiva Gnane Jiva Seva. When I rise it to that level, Shiva Gnane Jiva Seva. Every person who I meet, I try to see the divinity in him. Man is a compound of animality, humanity, divinity. What do you see? You see what you are inside. An animal sees only an animal. A human being sees another human being. One whose divinity has awakened, he sees only divinity. ಕನಕದಾಸರಿಗೆ ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ನಾಯಿ ಬಂದು ಒಂದು ರೋಟಿ ಕಿತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೊರಟೋಯ್ತು. ಅವ್ರು ಹಿಂದೆ ಓಡೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ನಾರಾಯಣ ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀನಿ ಇರೋ ಅಂತಾರೆ ನಾಯಿಗೆ. ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಹುಚ್ಚು ಅಂತ. ಭಗವದ್ಗೀತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಓದ್ತಾರೆ, ನಾಯಲ್ಲೂ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಆನೆಯಲ್ಲೂ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ ನಾರಾಯಣ, ಎಲ್ಲರಲ್ಲೂ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಶೂದ್ರನಲ್ಲೂ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ, ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣನಲ್ಲೂ ಎಲ್ಲರಲ್ಲೂ ಅದೇ ನಾರಾಯಣ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು, ಪಾಠ ಮಾಡಾಯ್ತು. But he has an experiential feeling for that. It is not just one saint. Every saint has this experience. The same divinity, the same consciousness is in every human being. As a doctor, can I see that? I see only body, the disease. Yesterday I was addressing homeopathy doctors and students. So they say it's all about life energy mismanagement. Prana Shakti. What do you see? Body, energy, a mind, a fellow human being? You see what you are. So if I can raise myself from the Pashutva to Manushatva at least, I will see something deeper. And the ideal of this plan, of this Bharata Bhumi, is Daivatva. We have to function from the deepest level and divinize all our relationships. I hope God will give us that strength to at least think and work on this level, function from deeper levels and divinize our relationship. All challenges are part of life. Life means challenges, trying to press me down. Life is the unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances tending to press me down. That is life. How will I respond? It will depend. How successful I will respond will depend on what level I am functioning in. Let us function from the deepest possible levels. It will give us dividends which money can never buy.